We appreciate your being with us here today. Just some quick introductions on our end, then we're going to get straight into it. Lots of content for you today, which we're excited about. My name is Daniel Whitmoyer-Bush. I head up the sales team here at Hivebrite. I've been with the company for over 7 years, and I have the pleasure of being joined by Bilyana Freye, who's on the call with us, who is the co-founder and CEO of Orbiit. For those of you who are not aware, maybe you are, maybe you've seen the news, Orbiit is an AI-powered matchmaking tool that was acquired by Hivebrite back in the summer of 2024. So we've been hard working to get it all set up together, and we're here to walk you through it today. So the goal of today really is just to talk about the value of Orbiit and what it offers to community builders such as yourselves. We'll have a walkthrough of the feature so you can see how it works, what it looks like on the back end. And we're also importantly going to show you some real world examples so you can see how fellow community builders are actually using Orbiit. Billy is also going to share some practical tips and some key considerations before implementing, and some common pitfalls to avoid as well. So this is really jam-packed, lots of content for you all. If you do have questions, please submit them through the Q&A box. We will have 10 minutes at the end. We'll make sure we can cover as much as we can. If we don't, we'll definitely drop a link so you can continue conversations with us after the call as well. So look out for that. And we're ready to get started. So Billy, I'm going to turn it over to you. And I would like to just sort of have a bit of a conversation with you now and kind of understand why Orbiit, what the value actually brings to community builders that we have on our call today.
Amazing. Thank you, Danny, for the generous introduction. And thank you again, everybody, for tuning in. Great turnout. Super excited to be here. And yeah, this is my crew. Orbiit was started and inspired by my co-founder and I actually running a community in New York City around 2018, 2019, a community for young professionals looking to learn from one another. And we very quickly realized that even when you curate an incredible group of people that are so well-intentioned and so keen to connect with the crazy world that we live in, where everybody is so time poor, you really need to take out the work out of networking for them and make it very, very seamless for them to connect to each other in a meaningful way, in also a consistent way where they're mining the value of that community through conversations with each other, but in a way that feels like magic. So we started building our own matching engine, which, to make a long story short, essentially was productized and evolved into a tool that powers connectivity and has become a tool to scale intimacy for communities all over the world. And one of our first use cases was actually connecting VC portfolios. And imagine that you are, and to this day, this is one of kind of the main use cases. Imagine that you are the CTO of a high growth startup, and you have fires burning on all fronts. There's a new development on AI front literally every day. Somehow in the middle of the day, you glance at your phone and you see an invite. Maybe it's from a CTO group that you're a part of, or maybe it's from, to that example of a VC, an invite from your startup's lead investor to be matched with a peer. It's a 2-sentence thing. You're glancing, looks easy enough. There's a button, match me. You get curious, you click on it. There's a very brief survey. You're a bit like, okay, if this lasts more than 30 seconds, I'm giving up, but you're done in 20 seconds. You share a few data points. How long have you been in the role? How big is your company? What's your calendar availability? What do you want to discuss? You're elated to see generative AI on one of the subjects. You select that and boom, you've opted in 20 seconds. You forget about it. A couple of days later, you receive an introduction, a calendar invite. You accept it, half looking at it, you glaze at it, you see another CTO role, a logo you're vaguely familiar with, great. Then a week passes on and you get the notification, a meeting is popping up, and you're half expecting nothing to happen, but you click on the video link, and on the other side, you have a CDO from the portfolio company, exact stage, exact questions about generative AI. You also have some icebreakers showing up on the video, helping you to get in the conversation, but typically people just dive right in. And before you know it, 30 minutes fly by, you actually stay on, and you've like workshopped so much of the challenges you're facing that when you close, it's like, holy smokes, this was the most helpful conversation that I've had in a long time. I'm so glad I went with the flow and I invested those 30 minutes. And then you realize that all your peers were having similar conversations. So imagine what that does kind of for the company that you're a part of and for the entire community as well.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds incredible and powerful. And we also use this internally at Hivebrite for similar things. And I've experienced that myself, being able to chat with employees in a 200-person company across many different time zones. And if those that missed the intro, Billy's sitting in London, I'm here in Colorado. So the face-to-face doesn't happen. And we've used it for those kind of conversations, even internally in Hivebrite. So that powerful conversations can happen with other CTOs internally in a company or whatever it might be, which is amazing. But I think what would be helpful here, Billy, for community builders, that story is amazing. It really is powerful about how someone can connect and into a peer network like that. But what about connections at scale? How can we help them lead to a scaling connection model?
Well, great question, because I think a lot of people joining here today on an intuitive basis would realize the power of one-to-one connections. But every now and again, there's still that skeptical feel of, oh, group discussions or events, or you keep the knowledge sharing in these closed doors. But in reality, what we've seen now from 6 years connecting hundreds of communities, hundreds of thousands of connections, is that one-to-one as a format is the most valuable format where participants can be truly open, vulnerable with each other, build trust, and get answers to hard questions in a way that a forum discussion, for example, or group discussion just doesn't allow for that.
Right.
And of course, once you kind of build that muscle and you activate that sense of belonging, that directly correlates with increasing retention, decreasing churn rates, and maintaining a very core and stable community base. And also what we're seeing is a correlation between these one-to-one connections driving engagement on other platforms. Because as people get to know each other really well, where you give them opportunity, again, it could be Hivebrite, it could be a WhatsApp group, a Slack community, they're way more likely to engage with or even generate content if they have that personal connection to the community, which, by the way, is so easy to lose as the community scales. And everybody has experienced this. Oh, it's just not what it used to be. You've heard it from members, you've experienced it yourself, but one-to-one creates that emotional connection to other members and the community, and helps be that flywheel of growth, and also helping you not just scale knowledge sharing and intimacy, but also lead to scaling the community and having
Mm-hmm.
that as your growth engine, essentially.
That so taking the virtual to the visceral, like enabling people to have the FaceTime with each other. Yeah, it's incredible.
Exactly. So I suspect a lot of the majority of people would be familiar with the benefits of one-to-one connections. I suspect a lot of you might be doing ad hoc introductions. Some of you might have got into the dreaded spreadsheet state where you're trying to stay on top of it, and maybe you managed to do a matching round for 50, 60 people, but now the community is 200. The data can be very patchy. That is another benefit of Orbiit. You kind of collect fresh data that's used for the matching rather than relying on kind of old stale CRM fields. And also you kind of seamlessly, you're struggling, if you're doing it manually, you're struggling with scale, right? I always say up to 100 people, even if it's painful, it's still manageable. And I would actually recommend you stick to the spreadsheets up to the 100-person cutoff point, but it just gets completely unmanageable and unruly in the hundreds, and I would say completely impossible when you get in the thousands. And that was also a very natural progression for us when we started. So essentially, this is how Orbiit was born. We were also adamant that in a world of platform fatigue, how we introduce people, we did not want it to be through yet another tool or yet another platform that they get onboarded on. So actually, this preview of Orbiit, before we dive in, Orbiit is a tool for community managers, giving you full control on who you want to connect, on what criteria, when, and of course, monitor the result and even have that kind of auto engine where it just keeps matching in the background, that it just becomes this connective tissue of the community. So yeah, basically the thing to note over here is that it's a platform-free experience for your community members. And when we were designing it for us, we wanted to remove the work out of networking, both for the members, but also make it very simple for us to control and to ensure at the same time that one bad connection is one too many. It had to be smart, it had to be relevant, and it had to have that wow factor every time.
Great.
So yes, because because the platform is for the community manager rather than the member, we partner and work very well with a number of and community platforms, of course, most notoriously with Hivebrite. This is how the whole acquisition came about. We had so many mutual customers that are saying, hey, this is incredible. Together, you cover the entire community engagement experience. You need to be one. Very excited. We're just about to release the
Integrations. Yeah,
integration.
which there was a
Hivebrite.
question. Yeah, there was a question in the chat, and keep those questions coming, by the way. We'll definitely tackle them at the end. So yeah, we'll get into more detail at
Perfect.
the end of that. Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, with the integration coming, that's going to be an even stronger match, but it is available on a standalone basis as well and works in partnership with other tools. In a nutshell, before we dive into the product and I show you around the back end, just want to explain the logic very, very quickly. So the cool thing about Orbiit is also that, well, there's many cool things, but one of the best ones is that it's very, very easy to set up. And literally after a 1 hour onboarding call with us and a quick coffee afterwards, double checking everything, you can be up and running. And the only step that we work on is very much focused on picking the matching criteria for your community. We have experience with connecting all types of communities. I mentioned VCs, but also we have a ton of customer communities, educational organizations, universities, doing all sorts of flavors of matching, and even wellness and spiritual and healthcare communities. So we have a lot of experience in guiding you what a good set of questions looks like, which is why we can really do it in an hour. And once we get your brand into the platform, agree the matching criteria, and you upload who you're matching, we then, Orbiit basically takes care of 90% of the work from there. So we send those invites that the CTO looked at on their phone. We send the email invites with your logo and tone of voice. We send the reminder to opt in. AI then does its magic in the background, coming up with the strongest combination of introductions and peers. We send the introductions, we send the calendar invites. It includes a video link, literally nothing for you or for your members to worry about. And after the chat happens, we aggregate the feedback. And typically for new customers, we definitely jump on a call, discuss how the first matching round has gone. We do sometimes have incredibly, I mean, crazy successful matching kind of pilots where even with a very demanding audience, the first matching round gets 100 NPS. This is sensational, but it is possible. More often than not, we will start with an NPS maybe in the 70s or 80s, and then we will look at the recommendation of the members and see, okay, how do we now get it up to Orbiit's average NPS of 87?
That's great. And just checking on time. I think it'd be great if
I
we can just start
know.
seeing like Orbiit in action, if you wouldn't
Yes, I
mind.
know.
Yeah.
You
I know
know,
there's a lot of content. I know you're
I was a
passionate.
risky choice for the webinar. I can talk about Orbiit literally all day long, but let's
Yeah,
jump in and I'll give you a very quick overview of the platform. So now we're into the actual Orbiit platform and we take data privacy and security extremely seriously. So this is a very rich sandbox environment, which is modeled on on actual kind of client usage. Before we dive into the main tabs on the front, what we would always do is set up the basics, make sure that whoever on your team also needs to be made an admin, observer, get everyone on board. And then, of course, it's very important, Orbiit, get it branded, get your logo in, get your colors, so those emails go out looking and feeling 100% like the community, and we become an extension of your other programming. And actually, that reminds me, the way to think about setting up Orbiit is like preparing an email marketing campaign and a survey in one. So we get the branding, we get your team set up. Also here you see integrations. One of the first steps that I'll show you is how to get your community in, or the audience that you're going to be connecting. Sometimes it's very simple, CSV upload of 200 members. Sometimes we have communities that are very dynamic, tens of, thousands or tens of thousands members. That's where we highly recommend an integration with a CRM. HubSpot and Salesforce are here. Hivebrite will be here. We also have a public API. And this is what gets me to the audience tab. So the first thing is, who are we connecting? And again, you can either create a new audience. Let's just say live demo, created, and then we'll go into it and
And
just
just to be
add.
clear, Billy, as you're doing that, yeah, this could be coming from a CRM, a list import. When the
Yeah,
integration goes live with Hivebrite, it can come directly from the Hivebrite environment as well, or all
exactly.
different areas. Yeah,
Exactly right. Exactly right.
great.
And this page looks different for different communities. As I said, sometimes there's only one line, one master audience. For example, over here, top line, 700 members. Sometimes with chapter-based communities, you have the subgroups like chapters being in a separate audience, and you can match them simultaneously. Also, in the VC example, sometimes VC funds divide their audiences by functions. So you have an audience of CPOs, CMOs, CTOs, founders, all matching simultaneously on kind of different criteria. And the benefit of
Mm-hmm.
that is that you can come up with very specific functional discussion topics. Whereas if you have a general community, then the discussion topics have to appeal to everyone. And
Yeah,
then
makes sense.
let's get into the meat of it. Engagements. Engagements, essentially, we call matching rounds. This is a very nice and healthy page of a community that is utilizing it, that's making the most of the tool and doing regular matching rounds. We'll get in a tidbit from the best practices. It's super important to do these matching rounds on a consistent basis, build that muscle in the community. And as we said, let it be the connective tissue that is just always available to your members. In the onboarding, we really focus on the first matching round. So when, if we partner together, this will be completely empty. And in the onboarding session, we will start a new matching round. So a live demo, we do one-to-one and group matching. I always recommend starting with one-to-one matching to new clients. So we'll focus on that for today, and small intimate groups, 4 to 9 people was a natural extension of the product. But for today, we'll focus on one-to-one. And I always like here, everybody has their workflows. I always like to start with just knowing who am I connecting, because that would really dictate the matching criteria. The other thing that we need to decide is the schedule of the matching round. So there's always a beginning when we essentially invite people to participate, then we close it, the AI does the matching, and then we move on to introductions, chats, and feedback creation. Again, giving you maximum control as community managers. So let's just say that we want to open a matching round next Tuesday. We do find that actually Tuesday is a great day to start a matching round. And you have it open, let's just have it open for a week. And you decide, when do you want the invites to come out, on what date. As you can see, the platform will naturally be guiding you, but you can absolutely override those dates. A very key feature that we rolled out at some point was match editing, just to give you that extra peace of mind of, you know what, maybe it's a mega VIP community. Maybe there are data points that you're not collecting here. Sometimes there's, for example, gender considerations or whatever it may be. So you also have the ability to preview the matches and make edits. You do have 24 hours to do that. So that is one thing that you have to be mindful of. You bake an extra day into the schedule to preview the matches. Or I personally don't. I trust the process, and the more you can very quickly get back to the spreadsheet mode, and it gets very stressful when it's in your control. And the
I've
NPS is
been there and lived there. It's a painful
it,
place to be with
it's
spreadsheets.
painful.
It's
Yeah. And
painful.
also like
Yeah.
sometimes you think, yeah, that's where also AI wins in terms of there's no bias, right? Whereas when you look at it, you start thinking and overthinking it. And yeah, I found that it's best
Trust the process, like you
trust the
said.
process. It
Yeah.
is a very solid feature for group matching. If you, again, like we've had situations, professional environments, and organizers want to make sure there's, again, equal maybe gender representation or other kind of softer consideration for the groups. And that's where a little bit of mixing can happen. So we save the timeline. And then we get into the meat of it, which is let's plan the email invite and let's plan the matching criteria. So by far the easiest way, and that's why we say actually Orbiit takes about 10 minutes a month to maintain, is once you've done the first matching round and it's performed well and 2 and 3, then you select literally your last matching round and you make minor tweaks, and you let it run again. So the most work goes into planning the first one, but even then it's not a completely cold start. We have some templates. Let's just say we're going to go with the most popular choice, Peer Connect, one-to-one format in a professional community. Here is essentially the survey that members have to, you decide the questions for the matching criteria, what your members will be answering. And for professional communities, we have a few pre-baked questions that are here, your company, your title. We typically ask them for a LinkedIn. And then here is where, let's add the topics for discussion. Let's ask of course, where can we be without generative AI as a discussion topic? Company size, that is relevant to a lot of professional communities, but as you can see, this is a little bit more geared to startups. If you can disable that and maybe you cater to your members are part of large enterprises, you can add a completely new question, again, like in a survey, and come up with completely new set of answers. In an extreme case, you can be asking your members here, what is your favorite flavor ice cream? Another cool thing that you can do, I mean, it's an important
Divisive.
question,
It's a
right?
divisive question.
Um, Another cool thing that you can do here, for a more mentor-mentee matching setting, is you can do a question where when you add options, when you add answer options, the AI will be looking, instead of for similarities, they will be matching exactly the opposite on this question.
Hmm.
So this is where you get mentor-mentee match or investor startup match, that sort of thing.
And I noticed on there as well, Billy, just quickly, like sometimes you don't need these questions for matching. So you could ask one question, might just be survey oriented. You just sort of want to know from your community a particular question as well. So they don't
Exactly.
all have to be for matching. That's cool.
Exactly. So sometimes the questions are used literally purely for intel gathering purposes for the community manager. And a big part of the benefits of the analytics and feedback is identifying those kind of trends, what's top of mind, or you basically, like, it's a subtle way to sample and survey the community without sending them just the dreaded surveys, a survey, but you add value with it as well. Okay, so I'm getting all this validation because it comes with, this is the email part. This is what I said, you have full control on. It's like an email marketing campaign. What do you want to call the initiative? What do you want the call to action button to be? And then it's very cool. After the first matching round, you can pull social proof and copy the highest testimonials and include them. Hey, don't miss out, opt in. Your fellow community members absolutely love this. And there's also a reminder email, which you can customize. Conversation guide is the prompts that I was mentioning at the beginning of the CDO dialing in just as a fallback. And we have generic ones. You can customize them as well. So this is obviously running through the setup of a matching round, but it is, given that we mostly do it in an hour on onboarding, it is definitely doable. Now let me just very quickly jump into a matching round that has closed and show you Basically, what happens, you've invited the community, they've opted in. Now you start seeing the opt-ins trickle in, and we have various symbols of the community. So for example, you can see who's a power user, you can see who's a first-time user, you can see who's just a repeat user, and also maybe there's members that you don't know. You can very quickly double check who they are. There's also, if the community is more open and you're looking for this initiative to maybe attract new contacts in your network, you will also see new contacts. You'll see that somebody is a referral if this is something that you are quick to do. Then you see all the matches. If you're utilizing the edit matching feature, you'll be able to basically break a match, drag it around. You will see if anyone is unmatched. We do our very best to match everybody. Sometimes it's a literally like time zone block. Yeah, most cases there will be one person that we will match twice just to literally not leave anyone unmatched. But sometimes it's just inevitable if there might be just no overlap and their data points are so different. This is the addictive part. Once you have a live matching round that goes over a few days, you will be refreshing and checking the feedback because it's truly phenomenal to see how people got along and what's coming out. And at a glance, you can see. You can also export it if you're sharing it with colleagues. You can download it, analyze it, and also in terms of analyzing it, you also see the performance of each matching round on an individual basis. And you also see a breakdown. This is where kind of the survey results come in. And we have communities that are really using it to inform other strategies, the overall opt-in rate.
That's
And
great.
on the analytics tab, you see overall how your workspace is performing over time. So you can do easily quarterly reporting, 6 months, 1 year, et cetera, and slice and dice and see all the total matches. You see your super users, you see the average, the kind of the average performance.
Well,
So
that's the community builder nerd in me just geeks out when I see numbers and analytics. You can't help it. You just want to
exactly.
see the performance. You want to know how successful things are. And yeah, as we're kind of coming up on time, it'd be great to see just sort of some real world examples. You might have some case studies if you could walk us through that quickly. And then we've got about 5 minutes till we hit the Q&A space.
Perfect. All right, let's dive right in. One of these, so very quickly show, we'll probably have time only for one, B2B customer community. This is an actual client, LeanIX. It is a community of enterprise architects, which again, similarly to CTOs at the moment, have a very tricky job navigating complex, basically building the technology structures of their companies. And LeanIX as a product is quite a complex product. So they have seen, they were always believed in community engagement as a way to keep happiness, customer happiness high NPS, et cetera, but they were starting to see that forums were no longer cutting it and they needed something to bridge from their annual conference. And when they discovered Orbiit, they were very excited to give it a try. So the goal is really to provide a frictionless ways for customers to connect with one another on the basis of similar product modules they're using, dive into use cases, but also network with one another. And again, compare notes. So this is an actual example of an invite with their logo and branding and a reminder. It's, personalized to your name. And if you want to opt in, as we were saying, with the CTO, you see that on your phone. You very quickly see, okay, let me see what this is. It's pre-populated with your name and email address because you're in the community. Then you very quickly, let's just say, share your title, your company, LinkedIn. This is you might have to step outside for 1 second for that. Years of experience, because seniority in the role does matter. Company size, this is all criteria that LeanIX is actually using. I would really like to discuss on the topic of integration. So somebody else that's going through integrating LeanIX and the scheduling part. This is such a big piece of the puzzle, right? Your availability. When can you have that one-to-one chat? You share it and boom, once
Wow.
you see the confetti, that's it. You've opted in. Then before you know it, you get your match, you get your calendar invite with the video link and the icebreakers popping up again, and they pop in again in the video link. And that is kind of the experience. But again, in a nutshell, what have we done for this community? So over 3 years of partnership, we're seeing an average opt-in rates of 17%. So participation rates, 17%, a third of the participants leave feedback. So that's very helpful in informing, again, temperature check for the community. It's not just about how did this chat go? It's also like, what else do you want to know about? NPS, consistently high. And what did it do for the business? At the end of the day, how do we evaluate the ROI for community? This is the million-dollar question for all of us, right? The community builders and for Orbiit. So we managed to prove with our analytics team that customers that regularly do one-to-one peer chats with other customers upsell 20% more than others. They also have 9% higher retention rate, which is phenomenal. In an environment where we're looking to improve performance, 0.5% here, 1% here, 9 is huge. Let me tell you, the renewal conversation is very easy. And the NPS improvement was 5 times higher for, again, customers that do the peer chats. So, and a few actual testimonials of people that are just like, wow, enlightening experience, great choice of supporting the customer base, incredible opportunity, fantastic opportunity, learned a lot, gained valuable ideas. And I can promise you, it's basically raining testimonials like that across all communities. And I hope we can deliver some results like that and similar success
Yeah.
stories for some of the people joining us today.
Yeah, that's
Whew.
great. I know, but we're going to get into some Q&A in like 2
Yes.
minutes or a minute. But before we do, just any practical advice for communities wanting to implement, like, do you have any sort of like, hey, make sure you do X, please avoid Y, like anything like that? That maybe some questions have come through the channel as well that you might want to just make sure we hit on before we wrap this
Yes,
up.
absolutely. I'll skip through a couple, but yes, I mean, if it's about connecting customers and prospects of a commercial organization, I mean, in general, any type of organization, but especially with customer connections, valuable customers with big contracts, definitely get, executive buy-in, be smart with segmenting your audience. And we love experimenting with you. So for example, with membership communities, we have sometimes separate matching rounds for paid members and maybe unpaid members that we're kind of warming up through these connections, and it helps generate a funnel and convert them into paying ones. Be very mindful of the matching criteria. It is easy once you figure it out, but sometimes it can take a little bit of fine tuning. We're real thought partners here, and again, bring best practices from a lot of experience. Yeah, so I mean, sometimes these can apply also for manual. If you're doing manual introductions, of course, you double opt-in, but promote actively. Basically, once people try it, they become super users. But which is why we really recommend, when you're rolling an initiative like that, get behind it from the very beginning. Maybe even announce it in a big event, big conference that you might be doing. Find the biggest community influencers to get behind it, and then from then on, just social proof. If you're using Orbiit in addition to a WhatsApp or Hivebrite, create promote it in channels, drop it in the main Slack channels, just as much as possible to
Blast it everywhere.
blast it everywhere to get people
Blast
to
it
try
everywhere.
it. And consistency. I mean, sometimes we have customers that are like, oh, we want to do it 3 times a year. Well, great, but it defies the purpose. We really need to build that muscle and allow people to constantly maximize the value. For senior communities, it's typically once a month. We do have kind of, if it's part of cohort-based learning, that might be more frequent. If it's aligned with the curriculum, it really depends based on base, but consistency is key, and really get people used to, have them anticipate when it's coming. And again, that drives awareness and participation rates.
That's great, Billy. I can see your mind is like, I've got so much to give that you could spend the next hour talking about this, which
I know. I'm
I
in
love
panic
that.
mode. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
because you're like, I could
that's
see you want to get it all out for everybody on the call, which we really appreciate. And you're full of wisdom on this, and we really appreciate you walking through that. I guess we're going to turn it over to the audience here, because we do have some questions that we want to get answered for them. Some great questions. I did see briefly, and I think somebody also is here in Colorado, which you might have been enjoying some warm weather with a bit of snow tomorrow, but I think that might have been Jim. Happy to definitely chat to you offline as well, so we can connect and talk about your community and what we can do there. But let's move into the Q&A, and
yeah.
we can get started. So I
I
think we
mean,
want to start at the very top,
sure.
but just how long are the meetings like typically, like how How
Yeah,
long do they
yeah.
take, and can you adjust that time?
Yeah, you can absolutely customize it to your community. Most people start with a very kind of inoffensive 30 minutes, and or you can go, you can experiment with 45 minutes. 30 minutes is an easier yes. And we do
Yep,
find that when it's going swimmingly, people stay behind anyway. We have
that's
like
great.
data where like one 30-minute chat turned into a 90-minute chat, and then we actually reached out to the members and they said they were chatting live, and then they switched to phone and went for a walking meeting, and it was amazing. So
That's
practice is
great.
30
And
minutes, but you can customize it.
okay, but that's adjustable. That's great.
Yeah.
And in general, how long does it take to implement? I think you might have covered this during it, but I heard like it's
Yeah.
about an hour. Is it 2 hours? Like, what's
Yeah,
that
we
lift?
can definitely, and I'll be transparent here. Like, if you're not used, for example, if we're not doing an integration, that can take a little bit longer, connecting our tech teams, et cetera, et cetera. But if we are doing a CSV drop of your audience, and it's not some crazy fringe case where we all have to like really rethink the matching criteria, 90% of the cases, we will be 90% done with a matching round in an onboarding session, and the remaining 10% will be with you with a big coffee or tea, proofreading everything, just like you would if you're planning an email and survey, in your own time, and then press go.
Great. And if you're ever in London, Billy has a great recommendation for a coffee spot. I can attest to that as well if you miss
Yes,
coffee.
hit me
Um,
up. I'm
yeah,
building my own
definitely.
mini
Yeah.
community in London.
Yeah. So the next one is from Jim, and he has a wonderful community. It looks like he's got about 6,000 members and 95% activation rate. Jim,
Amazing.
congratulations. That's amazing. And it seems like what you're doing is really powerful. I think it looks like he's struggling with like maybe the breadth of possibilities for a community like his because there is so many different personas in there. I think the question for Jim, and we can follow up on this afterwards as well, Jim, is what kind of support would be there for creating the criteria? So those questions, like how deep does the team for Orbit go into creating those different questions?
Yeah, we very much work on a consultative basis. Would love to do a deep dive and understand if is this a cohesive community? Can we segment it? What is the most representative group to do the first matching round with? See their feedback, iterate from there. And I 100% agree. I mean, it is very overwhelming. And I have to say, I feel like Orbit has increased in relevancy over time as we drown in more and more generative AI generated content and cold emails, and you're just like really swimming against the current now every day to get people's attention, which is where a conversation like this just reaches beyond the content avalanche
Yeah.
fighting, and which is why it gives you this like spike of satisfaction.
Yeah, and I would say for a community like Jim's with this diversity of personas, I think that's where Orbit really shines, right? Is being able to connect those
Yeah.
different groups of users together for conversations.
Yeah, we can really talk about and utilizing different audiences, fine tune the criteria per audience. This is our favorite part. This is what
Mhm.
us, the humans in Orbit, do, because the rest is the AI. So Jim, we're there for the strategy session. Excited to connect with you soon.
Great. Sean was just asking about integrations. We can definitely take that offline, Sean, but it's very, very close. It's just around the corner. And in general, the question here is just what kind of data would pull across from a Hivebrite profile. And that's really going to be up to you, but it would be the basics. And Billy, I was thinking about this question. I was looking at it because each round can have a different set of unique questions that might not even be relevant to a profile, right? It's more relevant to a conversation, if that makes
Yes.
sense. But could you expand on that a little?
Exactly. But I do agree, Jacob. And V1 will be mostly making it really easy to sync your audience. So that audience management that I was talking about. But definitely down the line, there will also be profile syncing. And we also want to like push data into Hivebrite and have the what we call a connections wallet. So we have a lot of exciting stuff in the making, and it's all coming. It's all coming. We've done
Great.
the infrastructure work, so now we'll soon be
We
in
could do
V.
the fun stuff.
Yes, yes,
All
yes.
right. And then Sonia, Sonia's from a great organization. We know Sonia well, has a question around matching rounds that are set at only the global level, but Sonia's community has a lot of chapters. So can you talk a little bit about what can be done at like a chapter or group level type connections?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm thinking of actually a community that we have with 30 chapters. And what happens is you can again have the matching rounds run in parallel and tailor the matching questions, what might be top of mind for each individual chapter. You could even have, depending if it's a city like London, for example, where a lot of people are still, concentrated, and meeting in person. We have certain kind of geographical chapters that include, hey, you've been matched, and also feel free to make this an in-person coffee. And then that creates a really nice opportunity for user-generated content with photos and testimonials. But yeah, we can absolutely, the chapter segmentation starts at an audience level. That's why when I was doing the demo, I started with that, because who you match decides the matching criteria, decides the strategy. And we can be matching dozens of chapters and sub communities simultaneously and tailor the strategy
Yeah.
to.
And we have like higher education clients that are very chapter focused, right, as well. So yeah, definitely something that Orbit's strong at. We'll get through a couple more. I think we've got about sort of 2 minutes here to finish up, and then we'll wrap up. And if we haven't got to your questions, please, we'll drop an email that you can respond to. We're going to send an email after this, so please reply to that. Get in contact with us. If we don't get to all of your questions, apologize in advance, but we will do our best to get back to you.
I do want to do a follow-up answer to Jim. Is criteria consulting an extra cost? No, we do that. That is all part of the onboarding process. And then we also do quarterly business reviews where we reevaluate, tweak, and yeah, we very much enjoy being your thought partners in this. And as I said, we were living and breathing community management, and it just brings us great joy to see community thriving and iterating together and seeing incredible results over time.
Thanks, Billy and Jim. We're in Colorado, so we also on-site visits at breweries is something that we're always appreciative of as well. There's many breweries here in Colorado that we definitely don't mind doing that. So just quickly, we'll finish on a couple. One of them is from Sean. It's about like drop off. Just what is that typical drop off? Like I think his question was, if we send this to about 800 people, what sort of the average matches we could expect out of those 800 people?
Great question. And I mean, I hate to say this, but it really does depend a little bit on the nature of the community. For paid networking groups, we naturally see opt-in rates maybe around between 30 and 40% when people are really focused on maximizing their membership and getting that ROI on a fee with associations, for example. You can see 30%. On average, I would say is more like 15, 20%. And in some extreme cases, by far a customer that no one could ever reach is a climate change community. They have 70% participation rate. A friend of mine said once that climate people are aggressively collaborative, and I can testify to that. So we should be able to get a good,
Yeah.
200 people
I
participating.
think that's like a community rule in general, right? Like depending on the type of community you have, will the activation rates or sort of engagement rates will vary depending on community type and size. So yeah, we can definitely get more into that, Sean. If you want to drop us a line, we're happy to chat more in detail about your community specifically. All right, I think we're going to finish with one more, and it's Ariana's. And again, we'll get to more of these questions if we can. It's just about establishing a matchmaking rule in addition to other criteria. So is group Y should be matched with group X if there aren't enough participants in group X? I'm not sure if you can see that question on the Q&A panel there, but just
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
sorry, I was in the comments as well. Da-da-da.
you're good.
Okay, so okay, I think, yeah, you're kind of talking about a little bit about group distribution, if I'm understanding that. So it would basically work with, you would give us an audience, and if you want to do group matching, the AI will make sure that there's an equal number of people across all groups. So you shouldn't be left with groups of, say, 6 and 3. It will be pretty consistent across the board. In the opt-in process, we actually like asking a specific question. Do you commit to joining the group discussion? So the expectation is that everybody is joining, and when the conversation is happening live, even if it's simultaneous, there's no kind of reallocation of members. We do our very best to like set it up for success at the very beginning, and then drive everyone through completion of the group discussion.
That's great. Thanks, Billy. And I know I just looked at the time and we're actually out of time, which is great. I know, again, there's lots that we can talk about. So please, there is a link there that if you want to learn more from the team, we're happy to have those conversations with you. I think Ali from our marketing team just dropped in a link. We'll also be sending an email following this up as well. So we really appreciate, Billy, you going into the depths. Again, I can see the passion and kind of how much you want to educate our attendees here today. So if you want to learn more, please click on that link to learn more. If you're already a Hivebrite customer, feel free to reach out to your customer success managers as well. We're happy to help out that way.
Yes, and let's have a one-to-one chat about it. Obviously, that is my preferred format. So excited to
Absolutely.
dive in and hear from you too.
Thank you so
Fantastic.
much, Billy.
Thank you,
And thank
everybody,
you,
for
everybody, for
joining.
participating. Yep.
Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye.